If you just examine the surface of the Mariners' 6-2 win versus the Blue Jays to put them one victory away from the World Series, it wouldn't seem like anything real notable happened, at least in terms of decision making. The M's had a 5-run outburst in the 8th inning, punctuated by a clutch grand slam. Sure, but nothing truly historic or something. But if you dig a little deeper, you can find a coaching decision in there that was so unbelievably bad that it not only is indefensible from an old world baseball perspective, but also with the new age approach. We'll get there. Things really got going in Game 5 of the ALCS when Eugenio Suarez launched his second home run of the postseason to give his team a 1-0 lead. Addison Barger would then help cut things off in this frame following a walk with a nice catch in right field before Leo Rivas struck out. This actually preceded one of the craziest low-key things I've ever seen in baseball, when, for the third straight day in a row, with the 8-hitter at the plate and Dan Wilson being interviewed, a Blue Jays batter lined a ball down the left field line for a leadoff double. But Andres Gimenez broke his streak of ensuing home runs by instead lining a ball hard to first base, where Josh Naylor made an excellent diving catch, turning it into a double play. Toronto was back to threatening in the 4th, again getting a leadoff double, this time from Nathan Lucas, before starter Bryce Miller intentionally walked Vladimir Guerrero Jr., then unintentionally did the same to Alejandro Kirk. Bases loaded, nobody out. It seemed like the best thing Miller could do was some damage control, and he started off well by striking out Dalton Varsho on a splitter in the dirt. The next batter, Ernie Clement, wouldn't be so easy, however, as the righty is known as one of the best contact hitters in the game. But it was then we got a chance to see one of the wackier plays possible, when he grounded a ball just out in front of home plate, and I do mean just, allowing Cal Raleigh to grab it, step on home, and throw to first for a 2-3 double play. And just like that, the Mariners were out of the inning. Along the way, it's worth mentioning that veteran Kevin Gausman was keeping the Blue Jays in this thing consistently on the mound, not allowing anything besides that Suarez blast early on, making his way through 4 innings with relatively limited traffic. This takes us to the 5th, when, with 2 outs and a runner on second, George Springer tied the game on a double to left center, though that was all they could manage to push across, even after Vladdy got ahead 3-1 at one point with 2 guys on before eventually striking out. The next frame would see Brian Wu be brought on for his first appearance of the postseason so far, as he's been rehabbing a pec injury. This would come with quite a rude greeting from Kirk, another Blue Jay leadoff double, and coming around to score shortly after on a single from Clement, one that featured one of the worst throws you're going to see in a relatively high leverage spot. Kirk is so slow that even a moderately decent throw would have made it close, but it was so far offline, Alejandro didn't even have to slide. The resulting 2-1 lead would manage to hold up all the way until the bottom of the 8th, with Gausman going 5 2/3 before handing the baton to Louis Varland, who recorded 4 outs himself. This brings us to the decision I mentioned in the intro, when John Schneider, quite inexplicably, decided to go to struggling lefty Brennan Little to face the 2, 3, and 4 hitters in Seattle's lineup. Now, before we get into the catastrophe that would ensue, I want to point out that this was a decision that was indefensible no matter how you look at it, and for 4 separate reasons. First, Little's obvious struggles in the second half of the season, which saw him post an ERA near 5, a number backed up on the advanced front as well, as you can see from his rolling expected WOBA. The quality of this guy's execution was in a slump, not just his overall numbers. Second, he really struggled this year versus righties specifically, which were 2 of the 3 hitters he was set to face. Third, both Raleigh and Polanco hit much better versus lefties in 2025, with Naylor not even being that bad versus them to offset it. And fourth, each hitter he was set to face crushed sinkers all season, with Raleigh specifically having a 1,000 slug versus them. Not OPS, slug. And 2 of the 3, being Naylor and Cal, both hit very well versus curveballs too. Those 2 very offerings make up 90% of Little's pitch mix. So, as you can see, it wasn't an old school vibes decision because he came into the appearance struggling, and it also wasn't a new age matchups things either, because the numbers that make those make sense just weren't there. And yeah, as for how it went, the big dumper immediately hit a game-tying home run on a 2-0 stinker right down the middle of the plate. This came just ahead of him walking the next 2 batters on completely uncompetitive 3-2 pitches, before finally giving way to the guy that probably should have started the inning, Sir Anthony Dominguez. At this point, the jam was already pretty bad, and it would become a bit worse when the righty plunked Randy Rosarena with a fastball, loading the bases with nobody out. This brought Suarez back to the plate, and he delivered, crushing a sinker the opposite way to right field for a game-breaking grand slam. And that was pretty much curtains. Andres Munoz would retire the Blue Jays 1-2-3, sending the series back to Toronto, with the Mariners now just 1 win away from their first ever World Series appearance, and the Blue Jays on the verge of booking their tickets to Cancun, in large part because of one of the dumbest and most indefensible managerial decisions I've ever seen in any game, period, postseason or otherwise. Alright everybody, if you made it this far, I appreciate you watching, and if you did, consider checking out any of these other videos on your screen right now for other content just like this. Also, if you ever see anything you'd like to see me detail in the video, feel free to reach out to my email, basebpoet@gmail.com, and if I end up using your idea, I'll give you a shout out. Thanks for watching, have a great rest of your day.